After the events of the loop, things went back to normal for the rest of the Steves. They went on to have their own adventures and grow as a society. This is Rainbow Quest Aftermath, The Yellow Kingdom, Part 3 of the 8-part series. After picking up his crown, the Yellow Leader sat on his throne, wearing a new jacket of yellow and white. A day had passed, and the Yellow Leader was in his room, looking at his weapon on the wall, and the shield in the corner. So much had happened since he met Sabre. The thought that he had almost betrayed him and sided with Sol back in the Rainbow Kingdom continued to haunt him, even when the Rainbow Kingdom was disbanded. Speaking of Sol, the Yellow Leader needed to check on him. After the Rainbow Kingdom disbanded, the Yellow Steves, with the help of the Colorless Guard, took Sol out of the prison below the Citadel and took him with them to the new Yellow Kingdom. After walking down into the prison below the castle, the Yellow Leader informed the guard at the entrance that he was there to speak with Sol. The Colorless Guard nodded and let him into the cell area. As he walked over to the high-security cell at the end of the hall, he noticed that all of the other cells were empty, except for the one where the corrected sun armor and weapons were being stored. The leader was proud of the fact that there was only one prisoner. However, he was also disappointed in who that prisoner was. Once he reached the cell, the leader put some food into the slot, which led into the main cell. Sol, without even looking at the leader, took the food and ate it. The leader tried speaking to him, but it was no use. Sol wouldn't even spare a glance at the leader. After a minute or two of silence, he got up and started to walk out of the prison, only pausing once to look back to the cell. Then he turned and left. After exiting the prison, the leader walked out onto the ledge, looking over the kingdom. He was proud of what the Yellow Steves had created. As he was looking out onto the kingdom, he saw Light run up the stairs. The leader hadn't seen Light since he was told about what happened with Sabre. Light wanted to show him something, and he agreed. They teleported to the abandoned library, where green, blue, indigo, and violet leaders were all gathered. After sitting down at the table, Light said he was going to grab the orange leader. Once they were all there, the mysterious figure from the Rainbow Kingdom walked into the library and pulled back his hood, revealing himself as a red Steve. The leaders were all shocked. After the meeting, the Yellow Leader went back to his kingdom to tell his people of the event. Shortly after the announcement, some of the Red Steves arrived at the kingdom. They told the Yellow Leader that they had caught wind that he knew of the location of the Great Library. The Yellow Leader paused and recalled the directions he had given Sabre when they were still in the Yellow Outpost before it was taken over by darkness. After some explaining, he took them there and gave them the directions from the outpost to the library. After the Red Steves left, the Yellow Leader stayed at the outpost for a little while. Last he remembered, the whole place was covered in darkness, and it had dissipated at that point, but the place was still in ruins. As he walked around the place, he felt a weird sense of nostalgia and fear. This was the last place he had seen and lived in before he was corrupted by the darkness, and everything he had built had crumbled in a matter of seconds. It was strange, to say the least, to walk through the outpost that he had painstakingly built and see the ruins and rubble of it all. Even so, he was proud of the accomplishments he had made when he lived in the outpost. As he took a final look at the ruins of the outpost, he got ready to teleport home. He knew he had little to no regrets about his old one. Time passed in the Yellow Kingdom, and things slowly began to return to normal. The Yellow Steves continued to trade materials with the Orange and Green Steves, and the Yellow Kingdom's relationship with the other kingdoms were thriving. Along with the other leaders, the Yellow Leader spoke with some of the Red Steves to use the towers to improve the productivity around the kingdom for the people in it and for some of the Colorless Guards, mainly just to create their weapons, armor, and shields. The kingdom was prospering more than it had before, and there was peace. The Yellow Leader participated in meetings with the other leaders, and in one meeting, he proposed the idea to all the others to create smaller camps surrounding the bigger Yellow Kingdom and other kingdoms, if they were okay with it. He had been thinking about this idea for a while now, and wasn't completely sure on it if it would be a good idea for his people and the other kingdoms. After they had discussed the idea, they all agreed that it would be something that could help the kingdoms prosper, and the Yellow Leader traveled back to his kingdom to begin preparation. Once he returned to the kingdom, the leader consulted with some of the Colorless Guards about how they should begin the process, since the majority of their resources were being transported to other kingdoms at the moment, and it could become an issue with trading. One guard suggested a few Yellow Steves go to the old kingdoms to gather resources, as he heard the Orange Steves were doing the same thing, and it had been productive and helpful to what they were trying to accomplish. The leader agreed, and over the course of a couple of days, he was able to make an announcement to the kingdom on what their plans were and create a small group of Yellow Steves to travel to the remains of the second strongest Yellow Kingdom and the strongest Yellow Kingdom. The Yellow Leader had known of the second strongest Yellow Kingdom in the time when he was still the leader of the strongest Yellow Kingdom, and he had known about the siege when he was in hiding. He had visited the kingdom a few times before for diplomatic reasons, but never simply to visit. One of the colorless guards traveled with them and recognized the kingdom, as it was his old home. He looked around his old home silently, recalling some of the memories he had about the people he'd met and the events that took place there. After a few minutes, the Yellow Steves told the leader that they were finished. The leader took one more look at the kingdom, and they teleported away. As the Yellow leader teleported into the ruins of the strongest Yellow Kingdom, he walked around the kingdom, recalling the last time he was there, which was when he was forced to go into hiding in fear of Nightmare Steve. He walked through the streets, taking some quick glances at some parts of the kingdom he recognized and remembered, and simply walked around for a few minutes to allow himself to recall the strides he had made in the kingdom. He walked into the castle for the first time in what seemed like an eternity, and gingerly stepped into the throne room. The Yellow leader looked to the throne and to the spot where the machine was, simply thinking to himself about all the things that went so horribly wrong, and the things that came from this kingdom that turned into something amazing. He turned and walked out of the throne room. They soon returned to the kingdom, and production began almost immediately, with many of the Yellow Steves running around the kingdom daily to make sure materials were being transported or made on time. Yellow Steve in the leather chest plate oversaw much of production, as the Yellow leader had been speaking with some of the other leaders about the camps. They had eventually decided for the camps to be a place where not only the Yellow Steves would stay, but all Steves were also able to stay, if they did choose. In the matter of only a few days, they were able to establish a foundation in a few locations around some of the kingdoms. The Yellow leader held an announcement for his people to inform them of the camps, and told them that all of them were welcome to live there if they choose to do so. The people seemed excited, and the Yellow leader soon saw some of his people moving to the camps. The leader himself visited the camps frequently throughout the next week, both to check in on the progress and just to check in on his people. When the camps were first created, he had appointed an unofficial leader to give the new camps a figure to trust as they grew. A few more days passed, and more of his people visited the camps, and as time went on, the camps grew into small towns, and with the quick progression of the towns, the Yellow leader was able to take a step back, knowing that the leaders he had appointed were more than capable. As he looked over his kingdom, he felt at peace. With the Yellow Steves expanding their kingdoms and the Yellow leader visiting some of the old locations, that concludes Rainbow Quest Aftermath, the Yellow Kingdom. The Yellow Steves, in a way, thrived when things were in dismay. They took pride in themselves for being the powerhouse of all Steves. But without battle and conflict, they've chosen a new direction in life, an easier, less abrasive path, a path that can make all much more happy. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment down below what you thought of this episode. As always, I'll see you next time.